Great. Well, good afternoon, everybody, and I'm delighted to be joining you here from Munich. It's been fascinating to hear about AI and automation in journalism from so many different perspectives today, from its potential in investigative journalism to trying to make it fit with public service values. So my name is Neil Thurman, as you heard, from the Department of Media and Communication at LMU Munich. And what I'd like to talk about today is online news video, which is one of the newer applications for automation in journalism. So you can see from my title that the first part of my talk is about what viewers want from online news video. And this is important because unless we know what viewers want, we can't know whether automation delivers. And that's the case in not just automated video, but also automated text journalism as well. So I'd like to start by providing a bit of background on news video automation. And then I'll present some results from work I've been doing with Sally Stairs, Michael Koliska and Jessica Cunard, looking at viewers' expectations of online news video and whether automation is meeting those expectations. Now, we're probably all familiar with the automation of written news texts, which has been around for at least a decade, not least because earlier today, Alan Renwick was on the program to give an insight into how Radar News is providing data-driven articles to hundreds of news websites in the UK. Until recently, automated journalism has been about turning data into words, which is why Matt Carlson's oft-cited definition of automated journalism talks about algorithmic processes that convert data into narrative news texts. However, what we're starting to see now is the automation of audiovisual content, including video. And there are three main types of video automation, so I'll just go over those briefly. So the first we can call video summarization. And this, well, here's an example from the Wimbledon Championships last year. And what IBM did was develop some technology that was able to produce highlights of matches from live footage. And the technology included various components to identify the key elements of a match, including a handshake detection component so that the ends of matches could be identified. Another form of video automation is similar to the way that most text-based automated journalism has worked. So this allows users to build templates, connect them with data, and then output multiple videos automatically. And then the third form is what we can call text-to-video automation. So this starts with text as input. And so in this particular platform, which is one of the market leaders, you input a text story. This one's on the death of Tom Wolfe, the author, and the platform goes away, analyzes the text, finds appropriate images, and the whole thing is edited together. At this stage, the video might be ready to publish, but in most cases, some tweaking is required in order to replace images that may not have been appropriately selected. So as you can see in this video, some of the images are of the wrong Tom Wolfe, the governor of Pennsylvania. So the operator could go in and replace them. So in light of such video automation technology, we ought perhaps to amend Matt Carlson's definition of automated journalism to read algorithmic processes that convert data, images, or text into written or audiovisual news items with various levels of human intervention beyond the initial programming. So I've briefly introduced the types of automation technology starting to be used in the production of news videos. The rest of my talk will be about researching what audiences think of automated journalism, including the video variety. So there's now a small but growing body of literature on how audiences perceive the output of automated journalism. As far as I've been able to identify, there are around 18 publications. They all take automated news text as their object of study, which is why my colleagues and I wanted to extend the literature into automated video journalism. And we also wanted to make some improvements on how such studies are carried out. So put simply, and if the studies tend to be designed like this. So first, a sample of respondents are found, and these have been very different in size and composition between studies. Second, sorry, let me just go forward because, okay. Second, some contextual questions are asked, for example, about age and news use. Next, the sample is split into groups with some exposed to human-made news texts and some to machine-made ones. After exposure, the respondents rate the texts on various criteria, for example, credibility, and then finally, the ratings of the different types of text are compared, often along with the contextual variables. And the results might show, for example, that the human written text was significantly more readable. Now, if we look at some of the methodologies used in some of these studies, we can see there are some areas for improvement. So, for example, some of the studies use stories that were not in respondents' native language or didn't cover topics they were likely to be familiar with. Other studies used human and machine written articles that were about different topics or from different journalistic genres. So, for example, this study used a human written opinion piece and a machine written factual match report. So clearly the different journalistic genre, opinion versus factual match report is likely to have intervened in the results. And then even when articles were about the same story, as in this study, they didn't necessarily use the same source material. So here we have two stories that were used in a study. One, the machine written one used Apple and Zacks as sources, while the human written story used a report by Strategy Analytics. So the different sources cited could have intervened in the results. Another issue is that the studies generally use very small samples of stories, even just one of each type, and no single story should be considered representative of its whole class. So, for example, Alan Renwick's Radar News produced 250,000 articles in the first 18 months, and we would be it would be ill-advised to take one story as representative of those 250,000. If we look at the criteria that respondents in these studies were asked to rate the news stories on, we can see that there were a large variety of questions asked, over 90 items. And some of these are clearly not appropriate to video, for example, text quality or well written. So you know, we couldn't use them. But there's actually a more fundamental issue here. And if we look at where these items came from, most were copied from previous studies. However, none of those studies were about automated journalism, and some weren't about journalism at all. So the danger here, as Sundar has observed, is that receivers are being asked to evaluate the quality of news stories using dimensions proposed by researchers, whereas in fact, people may not always carry values in their heads for the measures that interest researchers. So in summary, when we compare for research purposes human and machine-made texts, the text should be comparable in terms of their topic, story, genre, quality and quantity of sources used. The text should be in respondents' native language on topics familiar to them. And we should use as many texts as possible so that a single story, whether it's human or machine-made, isn't standing in for its whole class. And finally, we should compare texts using criteria that matter to news consumers, not just to researchers. So what I'd like to do now is start to talk about some work that we've done on consumers' perceptions of human and automated news videos. And the first thing we did was to make sure that we could compare the videos using criteria that actually mattered to consumers. And because little is known about what actually matters to consumers about online news videos, we conducted 9 group interviews with a mixed sample of online news video consumers. And we played them a series of short online news videos, including automated ones, and got them to write down their thoughts, turn those thoughts into adjectives, and then we moderated a discussion. And the discussions were quite lengthy because we ended up with about 145,000 words of transcripts. So we analyzed those transcripts and we identified 4 broad categories of criteria used in the perception of online news videos. And the first we call antecedents of perception, which are pre-existing preferences people have. For example, for subject matter. So Carla, for example, said that she would find any video about Cristiano Ronaldo engaging, each to their own. The second category was what we call the production aspects of the videos. So, for example, the balance between moving and still images. And moving images were generally preferred to stills in videos. So Linda, for example, said that she expected to watch a video in a video, not just words and what she called screenshots. And the third category was what we called news and editorial values, such as balance. Whether a video was considered balanced could vary from person to person. So we noticed in one of the group interviews that a video about Uber was praised by one participant for being balanced, but another participant had the opposite opinion, thinking it was 90% one-sided. And then the final category was what we called emotional impact. And these were often the first reactions respondents had to the videos as they expressed the strength of their feelings and the direction of their feelings. So, for example, Dina had, passion for one video about women drivers in Saudi Arabia, and then at the other end of the spectrum, Julian hated a cat video. So, armed with this knowledge about what matters to consumers about online news videos, we were able to design an experiment to see whether automation could deliver. And to do this, we conducted a survey experiment with some groups watching human-made videos and some watching automated videos. And we included 14 different stories in the experiment, covering a range of different topics, politics, crime, sports, and so forth. And we acquired or created 3 videos for each story. So one was human-made, one was partly automated, and one was highly automated. And so you'll see we don't follow most previous studies by classifying news as either automated or not, but rather we went for a spectrum which is reflective of how the particular text-to-video technology that we were using is actually used. So one of the challenges with a project like this is how to make the automated or the human-made videos comparable. So clearly the production differs in terms of the use of automation, but there may be other differences. So the way the story was written, the music tracks, the style of the captions, the style of the transitions between scenes, and so forth. And these other things, these other stylistic elements could clearly influence the results and make it harder to detect any differences there might be between, or rather differences caused by the automation process. So with this in mind, we developed a specific process for creating the automated videos to try to minimize these intervening variables. So we chose human-made videos from a national news agency, and then we used a leading video automation platform to make equivalent automated videos. So what we did was we would download a human-made video, so for example this one on Huawei, and then we transcribed its captions, and then we fed those captions into the automation platform, and a video was produced. We called that highly automated, and we included the highly automated video in our experiment. As I've said, in the real world, these highly automated videos aren't usually published without some further human editing. So, for example, to replace images that may not be particularly appropriate. So in order to mimic this real world practice, we took a look at all the highly automated videos, and we replaced images that weren't appropriate. So for example, this video on Huawei, there's an image of a NATO summit which doesn't fit the captions in that scene. So we went in and replaced such images. And after we'd done that, we then had a set of what we call partly automated videos, which we also included in our experiment. And about half the scenes in the partly automated videos were edited. The other ways that we try to minimize potentially confounding variables was by making sure that the automated videos had the same style of captions as the human-made videos, that the between scene transitions were similar, the music tracks were as similar as possible. And so here is one of the 14 sets of videos that we used in the final experiment. So you can see that the words in the captions are the same, the style of the captions are very similar. If you could hear the music, you would hear that the music is very similar, and the videos use simple cuts between scenes. So the differences are what really distinguish human-made and automated videos, and that is the choice of the images and the pacing of the editing. So that's how we created our videos, our stimuli for the experiment. Moving on to the sample. So if we look at some of the previous research on audience perceptions of automated journalism, we can see that age and gender can have some effects. And therefore, we felt it was important that we could control for demographics in our analysis. And we were fortunate to have support from the Volkswagen Foundation and also the LMU NYU partnership program. And so we could use a much larger and more representative sample than in previous studies. So we had 4,200 respondents who were representative of UK online news consumers by gender, by age, and by location. And location stood in for social grade. So what did we find? Well, among the questions that we asked were respondents' overall liking of the videos. Now, I'm not sure whether this slide is actually coming through properly. It looks like the image is slightly too large for the screen, but I'll just talk you through it. So there wasn't a huge difference between the different types of videos. So the human-made videos on the left, the partly automated videos in the middle, and the highly automated videos on the right-hand side. So the only significant difference in overall liking was between the human-made and the highly automated videos. So in other words, the human-made and the partly automated videos didn't differ significantly in their overall liking. This is a global comparison that considers all 14 sets of stories that we included in our experiment. If we look at all the story sets, we can see more variation. And indeed, for several individual stories, like this one on Cristiano Ronaldo, the highly or the partly automated videos were actually more liked than the human-made ones. And so this shows the problem with using small samples of stories in this kind of research. You know, if we'd only used the Cristiano Ronaldo videos, the 3 videos, then we would have had a completely different headline result. So, so far, so good for the video automation platform, in particular because it's designed to be used in partly automated mode. But how good is overall liking as a metric to evaluate the quality of the videos? Well, as well as asking about overall liking, we also asked about several other quality criteria that had come up in the focus groups. So, for example, the respondents were asked to rate each video on a scale between professional and amateur, and confusing and clear, and so on. And we actually see more difference between human and the automated videos if we use some of these other criteria. And I haven't got time to go through all of them, but for example, there are significant differences between the human automated videos in how engaging, professional, comprehensive, and dry respondents thought them to be. So specifically, the human-made videos were considered to be significantly more engaging, more professional, more comprehensive, and less dry. So what's driving the differences that we see between the human-made and the automated videos? For example, in overall liking and in things like how dry people thought they were. So we asked a number of questions about the production aspects of the videos to help answer this, for example, on the captions, on the images, and the audio track. And here we start to get a clue as to why the automated videos are less liked in some regards. And again, apologies if this image is too large on the screen. So one of the reasons we see some of these differences is the use of images. So the human-made videos scored significantly better than the partly automated videos on the liking of the images, and the partly automated videos significantly better than the highly automated videos on use of images. And remember that in the partly automated videos, we edited an average of about half the scenes to replace mismatching images. So finally, I'd like to come on to the effects of socio-demographic variables, and we went to some effort, as I said, to get a nationally representative sample. Was it worth it? Well, we have started to find some, although not many, differences between individuals of different socio-demographic groups. So we found lower average levels of liking amongst retired respondents compared to full-time employees, but this was actually across the board for all types of video. But there was a significant interaction effect between gender, authorship of video, and degree of liking. So for male respondents, the differently authored videos were liked to more or less the same degree on average. But for female respondents, the human-made videos tended to be liked more than the highly automated videos. And this is an interesting finding, and it does call into question perhaps the wisdom of using samples that are unbalanced gender-wise. There's plenty more to explore in the data, but I'm running out of time. So you'll have to stay tuned for further results. I think I probably need to leave a few minutes for questions, but before I do that, I would like to thank my collaborators in this work. So specifically Sally Stairs from City University of London, Michael Kaliska from Georgetown University, and Jessica Kunert from the University of Hamburg. And thanks to you all for your time and for listening.